Welcome to CoMotion Lab's Fundamentals for Startups. I'm Donna O'Neill, Director of Marketing and Communications at CoMotion at the University of Washington. Fundamentals for Startups is our regular lecture series open to anyone interested in learning about entrepreneurship or building a startup. Each week, we feature experts from various fields who bring you insights and inspiration and give you the opportunity to ask questions. All sessions are recorded and archived on CoMotion's website. For our full schedule to register for future fundamentals, please visit bit.ly/CoMotion Fundamentals. Now, a little bit about CoMotion Labs. We are a multi-industry incubator program hosting early stage startups from both inside and outside the UW community. We're committed to nurturing and enabling startup success through critical infrastructure, training, mentoring, and networking. And we do this without taking equity or IP. We operate out of 3 locations on campus, each with its own industry focus: the life sciences and hardware incubators, which are both in Fluke Hall, and our technology incubator, which is based in Startup Hall. If you are a founder looking for somewhere to thrive, we'd love to talk to you. Today, Devins is here to present Bootstrapped Marketing, attracting your first users without a VC-funded marketing budget. Devin is the founder and executive chairman of Snowball Industries, a national roll-up of HVAC and plumbing companies. He grew the company from inception in 2020 to over 30 million in revenue and 150 plus employees. He's also the chief investment officer at Tokenscom, a publicly traded blockchain private equity firm, and the chairman of Matador Gold Technologies, a blockchain-based gold platform. We'll take questions via the YouTube chat and in the live event space at the end of Devin's talk. Now I'll turn the event over to Devin.
Great, thank you, Donna. I'm excited to be here and share just some of the thoughts and journeys and learnings I've had in my 20+ year career. The one thing, I had a pretty varied career, and I'll certainly get into some of the things I've worked on in the past. But I think the one common thread has really been using marketing and sort of the growth of sort of the digital economy and being able to find people all over the world in really cost-effective ways as a channel to grow businesses. I've started my career, and I'll get into it a bit shortly, as an investor and pivoted over to an entrepreneur, so kind of seen both sides of it as well. To really just talk about what I'm going to talk about, I think one of the things I've really learned from investing in probably 30 or 40 companies and starting half a dozen has been that the brute force approach of acquiring customers and going to Google and Amazon or Facebook or advertising those ways can really work once you've raised a lot of money, learned a ton about your business and your customers, and are really ready to step on the gas, and know that every dollar you make is going to bring in more than $1 in revenue. But until you're figuring that out, I think it can be a really tricky competitive place to hang out. And there's lots of other ways to get your first 1,000 customers, get your first few $1 million in revenue that might not cost you anything at all, and will actually give you a lot more immediate feedback about the types of customers that resonate with what you do. So today's talk is really about a few things that we've done and still continue to do today to grow some of the businesses that I'm a part of. This, and as Donna mentioned, with my background, I've done everything from kind of blockchain based enterprise sales to plumbing and air conditioning. I've started companies in the supplement space, so I've worked in a lot of areas. And I think the one thing that's really funny is that how little marketing can actually changes across these industries. So that's kind of what I'll be spending some time on as well. So to go a little bit into my specific background, I started my career, I went to college thinking I was going to be an investor and work in finance. Worked at Goldman Sachs and Highland Capital Partners for many years, starting on the investment banking side and eventually moving over to the venture capital side. I helped seed invest in companies that were 2 people and a dog and a spreadsheet that have kind of grown to become public companies. But also, participate in companies that were already doing, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, but needed capital to, build their sales team and scale and things like that. I think, to kind of go to dates, but about 10 years ago is really when I, stepped away from working in finance to working in, kind of my own companies and starting them. And, the first one I did, which does not always happen, wasn't necessarily expecting it, it did extremely well. I started a consumer supplements company called Sprayable, which, we launched the company, and, within, 5 or 6 days of launch, we'd actually gone just completely utterly viral. And it was weird, sitting in my parents' basement, because I moved back home to save money, and kind of building this company, and all of a sudden had, Good Morning America flying over to kind of interview the business. Being on the cover of, my relatives in India sending me, photos from like the Times of India paper that day, where we were kind of featured within, a month of starting the company. And I think a lot of those lessons and that success are things that we've been able to replicate with other businesses. And I'll kind of share some of those learnings as well. Since that business, I've kind of, gone on to a few things. Started a company about 2 years ago in the HVAC and plumbing space, which is completely unrelated, not a plumber. But, the thing we just learned from looking at a lot of data was that a lot of these companies in this space that started, 50, 60 years ago had a lot of success, but hadn't really caught up with, sort of the digital era, and how consumers are much more used to, ordering, services like this, or looking for them online or using their iPhone, than they are, looking at the phone book like a lot of folks have been ordering. So we started this company, really doubled down on digital marketing, and we were able to grow the business from basically a standing start, right at the beginning of January 2021 to about a little over $30 million in revenue last year, likely over $50 million in revenue this year, really on the basis of being really, really good at digital marketing, without spending a lot of money. And on the other side of things, I kind of got involved in, sort of, living in Silicon Valley previously, and watching kind of a lot of companies and industries grow. Got really involved in, kind of the blockchain space. Helped a company called Tokenscom kind of get started a couple of years ago. It was basically, I think, in Canada at least, the fastest company from launch to IPO, I think, ever. From like incorporation to going public in less than 6 months. Hit a peak market cap last year of $400 million. So really, again, I think a lot of this was really just telling the right story to the right people in the right way. And again, that's kind of some of the things I'd like to share today. I think the biggest lesson that, I probably didn't listen to early in my career, now I, don't ignore, is really when you're starting out as an early company with, a lot of startups where, founders and team members wear a lot of hats. You're, the chief marketing officer, the CEO, the chief chef, like, gives you everything. And, while marketing is really important, I think the one thing we've learned is really to just focus at launch on just one marketing channel and try to get that to succeed as well as possible. You'll know when it slows down, and you'll know when it's working. But, unless you've gotten, your first, thousands of customers, or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or if not millions of dollars of revenue, you can often do that off of one channel. And that channel, you can, decide what that is for your business. It could be, something like, LinkedIn if you're selling B2B products. It could be something like, YouTube or TikTok if you're selling, consumer products. But, when you do pick that channel, I would highly suggest that it's not, buying ads on Google, buying ads on Facebook, because, the thing you learn about these places are that they are finely tuned machines with thousands or hundreds of thousands of employees that are there to extract every dollar from their customers. And they do that by, building a consumer audience, and then honing that audience to take, to make as much of that reach that you want to get, the connection to consumers. And as you're a business, you're the ones that are paying. They monetize that extremely well. So instead of going to a channel that's trying to monetize their audience the best they can, it's often better to go to a channel that's trying to build their audience the best they can, and go and some really good examples, I think, today in the B2B space. LinkedIn has really shifted. I'm not sure if you spend a lot of time on the platform, but it's really shifted from a place where, it's just a social network where you kind of look up, people you want to hire, into almost a content platform where businesses are building their brands by communicating, lessons they've learned, learnings, and things like that. And they've really not monetized that yet. So, one of the things that we found with many of our businesses is you can get, by starting a good post and engaging with the right people, which I'll kind of cover later in the talk, you can get, thousands or tens of thousands of impressions from the exact people that you want to get really, really quickly. TikTok, I think, is the same way. They really haven't turned on the gas on monetization. Whereas if you go to the other side, as I mentioned, places like Instagram, Pinterest these days, Facebook, Google have really, really focused on, extracting every dollar out of the smoke. So really focus on those new up and coming channels, so you don't have to spend money, and instead you can spend time. And the last lesson that everyone, I think has to learn the hard way, but trying to forewarn people, is really when you do start getting that attention on a platform, that platform could be LinkedIn or things like that. Really, really focus on migrating those users from someone else's platform that they own to your platform through things like phone numbers, email addresses, and keep those on your own tools, not on someone else's. Because what can happen really quickly is it's really quick. Sometimes as these products are scaling, it's really quick to get users on a platform. Facebook Pages was a really good example several years ago. But one day, what they can do really quickly is turn that off, and that way you don't own those users anymore. You have to start paying to reach them. So the more you can actually find ways to convince people that are on a platform to come directly to you, join your email list, things like that, the more you can sort of market to them and build that relationship without that intermediary that's going to sort of take their little pound of flesh or toll every time you do it. So really want to focus on, I like overgiving, so it's 5 ideas turns into 6, but really focusing on a couple of areas that people can focus on that our company has had a lot of success in terms of sharing, getting users, getting virality. I'll start with PR, which can be extremely powerful to build credibility for all of your other channels. Oftentimes you'll see, new companies saying they've been featured on, pick your media platform, and that can give a lot of people that are really, really skeptical in today's world, a bit more trust in your brand and business. The second one is gated content, which is basically creating content where you share a little bit, but in order for a user, a customer, or a fan to get more, they actually need to give you something in return, which is usually access to their email or something like that to get the whole the whole piece of content. The third one is actually cold outreach, and I don't necessarily mean cold outreach to reach out to customers directly. If you're an enterprise, you can do it just fine. If you're selling energy and things like that, like probably not as useful because it's not work for sale. But reaching out to podcasters and media outlets and places like that can make a lot of sense. The other two are really about leveraging other people's networks and brands, influencer outreach and affiliates, to actually build your brand, but doing so in sort of a win-win way, and something that we've had a lot of success in as well. And lastly, 6 is really not a channel, because you actually need to get the customers first before you can market to them. But once you do have those customers, email tends to be the highest converting form of anything, and it has been for the last 30 years. And I don't think it's going to change for the next 30. We'll see. But I'll kind of dive into each of these. I'll try to go a little quick. Obviously, the slideshow and things like that will be available, but I want to leave as much time as possible for Q&A. So organic PR, and I think the one thing I really want to emphasize is that the really great thing about PR and getting featured on publications and newsletters and magazines and blogs is really a form of earned media, where you're actually doing a favor to reporters and writers who need to create content on a daily basis to attract their users. And if you're able to do this in a authentic and genuine way, which is saying, how can I actually help a reporter out? How can I help a blogger out by giving them something interesting to write about? You can kind of build a win-win relationship that lets you get in front of your audience. I think the one mistake that most people will make or the two mistakes people will make that are highly related are they will create press releases or aim to reach reporters for things that no one cares about, no one cares that you raised money. No one cares that you released your product. What they care about is an interesting story that resonates with their users. And those things are often tied to current events and things that are really exciting that are in the news. And people, 2 weeks ago, everyone was talking about, or the Super Bowl, and now people like talking about the weather, right? Like there's things, forest fires, or climate change. Like there's things that people are hot button topics, and those kind of ebb and flow. And the more you can kind of tie into those topics, the more attention you're going to get from reporters, because you're helping them do their job. So I think the first part of this is really saying, like, let me understand my own target customer and figure out where they're spending time. Are they reading Newsweek? Are they reading TechCrunch? Are they on, are they reading specific industry publications or blogs? And find places where they spend time and really cater your strategy to those places. Spend time actually, on these sites, determine what types of things people are writing about, what types of posts get the most comments and engagement, what kinds of posts get pinned the most to the front page, and really try, and then go through those and say, hey, what kinds of companies are being mentioned, and how can I be more like those companies and less like the company that just announces that we raised $3 million from my uncle and two folks that again not as interesting to people. A really good tool to which charges a little bit of money, I think it's like $30 or $40 a month, is a tool called Help a Reporter Out. Help a Reporter Out is basically a tool where writers can say, I need 3 companies to talk about what they're doing about global warming. I need 2 companies to talk about how they're using AI in their marketing efforts. And you can basically reply back and say, here's what we're doing. And oftentimes, if you're sort of early on these things, you'll get a call back from a reporter, and 2 things happen from that. One, you might get a little mention in an article. You might get a quote about your business. That those things aren't necessarily the best to say I'm going to get 1 million users from this little post on this little blog. But what they are great for is building a relationship with these journalists who you've already now got a dialogue with. You've got an email, that, so then when you do have other topics that are topical, other areas that aren't, hey, I have a deadline tomorrow, but writing about what people are doing for summer vacation, or what enterprises are doing about the migration to sort of the cloud, or security and things like that, right? So you can focus your business and your narrative, and actually give these reporters an idea for content, featuring you and your brand in a more authentic way. So I think, again, it's a really interesting way to start. The one thing I'll say is marketing is always a feedback loop, and if you're not tracking the end results of the top of your funnel of audiences, you're not going to be successful. So what I'll say is use whatever tools you're using to Google Analytics or anything like that to track the results of PR. Figure out which publications, which reporters, which content types are having the best result, and double down and focus on those. Stop focusing on ones that don't have any value. And things like that we realized at my first company was that places like that you would think are credibility builders, Good Morning America and Newsweek and Fortune, Forbes, didn't have the intended result. We didn't really get customers from those places. The places we got customers from were kind of Engadget and Wired, and places where real enthusiasts kind of spend more of their time. And since then we started focusing and building real relationships with the public, those publications and those reporters, and less time for those vanity PR logos that so many people spend so much time and money chasing. So that's kind of the first one. An example of one just very recently that we, one of the companies I work with, which is called Tokenscom, went viral in about a year ago, or maybe year and a half ago. The metaverse became very popular when Facebook launched their own metaverse, renamed themselves to Meta. And right at this time, this was so very coincidental, but our company had been at Tokens.com had been buying real estate in the metaverse, and just completely randomly, 2-3 days before that, we had actually ended up making, I think, the largest purchase ever in the metaverse space. And I think what we did really quickly as Meta became popular was issue a press release how we, to our knowledge, had made the biggest transaction in the metaverse. And from that, within 48 hours, people started picking it up, and it went viral, so to speak. We were featured on Fortune, Forbes, CNN, New York Times, and we generated a ton of investors from that. We had people that wanted to put in money into a metaverse fund that we kind of had been thinking about starting, and this is all because we were at the right place at the right time, which is the entire media cycle shifted to metaverse. We had a business that was doing things in that space, and we found a catchy angle. We make the biggest purchase in the metaverse, right? And I think, again, obviously you don't need to spend millions of dollars to do that, but I think another really good example here is things like ChatGPT. If something went viral 2 weeks ago as people replacing jobs, so putting a press release saying, hey, we're a company and here's how we do this, could at the time had a lot of companies getting a ton of media. And I think these events happen on a daily, if not weekly basis. The second one is something that we've had just a tremendous amount of success with, and it's sort of a quid pro quo called gated content. And this can be a personal or corporate brand, but this is where you actually create something that's really valuable for your customers. It could be a white paper, it could be a set of tools. It could be, if you do outbound sales, it could be, hey, here's the 5 scripts that work best, when you're cold emailing, enterprises. If you're, energy drink, it could be, here's the, we taste tested the 5 best energy drinks and broke down the nutrition, categories each. What you do is you share, 50 or 60% of the content, maybe 80%, publicly using whatever channel you're focusing on. Again, if it's B2B, it might be LinkedIn. If it's more consumer oriented, it might be Twitter, or it might be TikTok or Instagram. But you share 80% of that content, and then in order for people to get the remainder, maybe it's a spreadsheet download, maybe it's actual access to a Google Drive file, maybe it's a white paper. You actually have to request to get somebody's content and email address. So what happens then is you start getting a bunch of people that are really targeted to your brand and message, that care about what you're saying, logging in, getting users, and then you can start building that relationship via whether it's email marketing or something else directly to them, and they're getting something of value, and you're seen as an expert in the niche. So I think that's something that we've had a lot of success with in sort of the B2B space. The HVAC and plumbing space, something we'll often do is basically say, these are the 5 best air filters. And during COVID, it was the 5 best air filters that have been scientifically proven to reduce in-home sort of like viral load and things like that. And we'll share details about them. We'll have a ranking system, but then actually, in order for people to make a purchase or get a 10% discount on this specific thing, we say send us your email and you get this. And we've gotten hundreds and thousands per geography of customers asking for the coupon, or asking for the details on the study. And those customers are extremely targeted. It's something that can be nearly free to implement because you've already created content that's valuable for your business, and it's something that we've just had a continued success with, and it's something that works in almost any industry, whether you're selling plumbing equipment or selling enterprise software. So it's another one that works, and happy to talk more about it in the Q&A. And these tend to work really well on LinkedIn these days. Again, and the reason they work well on LinkedIn is because and Twitter is because these are channels that are still focusing on attracting users and getting viral content and increasing engagement. They work way less on places like Facebook because Facebook makes you pay for these ads. Cold outreach, obviously, it can be a dirty word, but there's a reason why people cold call you and cold email you. It's because it works. And one thing that we found that works really well isn't just basically saying, hey, I'm going to go, buy a list from somewhere and send a spam email and say, hey, please buy my product because it's great. We've found that the actual best, sort of cold campaigns that work are, again, cold campaigns that are not sort of transfers of dollars, but transfers, sort of equitable transfers of value, where you provide something to somebody and they provide something to you. And one place that it's worked extremely well has been, for us, has been, kind of podcasting. You have, thousands of people, or if not hundreds of thousands of people over the last, 24 months that have realized that the best way for them to build their own brand and business is to, create a podcast or create their own social brand. And, the one thing that all these folks have in common are they all need content all the time. They all need to talk to people. They all need to interview people, and everybody's an expert in something. So the thing that we've had a lot of success with at Matador is a really good example where we're trying to get the word out about our business, which sells, kind of gold and precious metals to people. So one of the things we've done is just say, hey, let's find every person that has a small podcast first, right? 1,000, 10,000 users, not, you're not going to go reach out to Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss, probably not going to work. But it may, but what we have found is when you have folks that have, thousands or 10,000s of users, they're always looking for user content. They want, they kind of want a quid pro quo. They want you to share their podcast with your audience as well. So I think, again, the best thing to do here is really establishing that deep connection to find users that, understand your users. What are they looking for? Where are they spending their time? Find people that they may listen to, they should listen to, reach out to them, and offer, a specific targeted niche saying, hey, I've listened to, 4 or 5 of your podcasts here. I think a really good, topic to cover would be this. Would love to, share this with your audience, and we've had a 70% open rate and almost a 10% reply rate for some of these emails, which, I don't know if you can send a lot of cold email, but it's pretty unheard of. And it's, every email you get to might get you, 10, 20, 50 email signups. And the other thing it does is it helps you create content that you can then kind of share through other channels. So it's something that we've had a lot of success with. So, example here, over the last, I think, month, this is actually really, really recent data. But, over the past, I think, literally 10 or 12 months, we've interviewed 700 podcasters at Matador, and we've been on, something like 80. And it's just something, something that took probably a week of effort to get right, to really, and I will say actually $0. It costs us $0 to get this going. But, we've done this, and, we haven't launched the product yet. And we've built a wait list of, I think it's 9,000 people now for a financial product, which is pretty great, just using sort of this cold outreach to podcasters. In a really similar vein, influencer partnerships and promotions can make a lot of sense. These are, again, finding audiences and human beings that benefit from, sharing your brand, and you benefit from, sharing their audience. I think the biggest thing, again, with this is, you're not going to probably have a lot of luck reaching out to Kim Kardashian, but you might have a lot of luck, reaching out to, someone with, a few 100,000 users, followers on TikTok, or, 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. And again, they're always looking for things to talk about. They're always looking for things to promote. And one of the things that we found that's worked really, really well has been not actually just, hey, hitting someone up and saying, please promote my brand, please talk about my new fundraising round, but actually kind of co-create a joint venture that is a win-win. Oftentimes what we'll do is find 10 or 20 up-and-coming influencers in the space and actually create an internal advisory council for our company that has these folks on it. These people are trying to build their brand. They get value from being seen as an advisor to a new up-and-coming brand. They'll and maybe there's a a small advisory share component to it. Maybe there's an affiliate fee, which I'll talk about next, for the right kind of product. But then associating them with something gives people credibility, it makes them feel good, and it makes them want to actually talk about your brand, not just a cold email saying, hey, can you market my t-shirt to your audience or whatever it is. And these types of things, these symbiotic relationships are really the heart of what marketing is. I think is trying to find a way to create a win-win with people, not just kind of get your commercial in their face. Again, I think the most important thing here is really picking your niche. If you've got someone that has a workout channel, selling your B2B enterprise thing probably isn't going to work. But the weird one is you'll realize that some of these search engines work extremely well. So going to TikTok, or going to a podcast list, or going to Instagram, and just searching a keyword that you care about, that's relevant to your business, and finding, sorting, by recent, instead of sorting by number of followers, and finding people that are posting a lot and are going to be the next influencers, building a relationship with them early, getting them engaged with your brand early, can work tremendously well. There's NordVPN, and this is a great example of one, because they've done a really good job of sponsoring almost every influencer on planet Earth. But to give you a more personal example, I think when we started Sprayable, which was this kind of the supplements company I started, we had engaged with some influencers before when they had 5,000 or 10,000 users, and over the span of a year, many of them had grown to 5 or 10 million users, and we still had the relationship with them. We still had their direct email, and we still had them on our advisory board. We'd given them maybe a few $1,000s of shares, but they still felt obligated to continue to help us, because we kind of supported them early on during their process, and it's something that just works extremely well, especially in a world like today where everyone wants to be famous, whether they're they want to be famous talking about VPN software, they want to be famous talking about their their workout routines or makeup routines. In a similar manner, I often think, and this is, I think, the best for last on the actual kind of channels, is affiliate marketing. Affiliate marketing is finding people who have existing audiences, or are good at are really good at monetizing various channels. In the same way that early on in the talk, I suggested that we focus as a bootstrap startup on one channel. Often affiliate marketers are really good at one channel. That channel could be email, that channel could be Instagram, that channel could be Google. But what they've done these are individuals or companies that have gone to a lot of time in the early days of the channel building large audiences, whose sole job is to kind of monetize their audiences. There's a bunch, depending on the niche you're in, there's a bunch of platforms that actually help matchmake companies that are affiliates with the affiliates themselves. Things like Share a Sale, JV Zoo, ClickBank are many, and happy to share more as helpful in a specific niche. But these are folks that only get paid when you make a sale. So if you're selling a $2,000 widget, and your gross margin is $500, and you're typically saying, hey, I'm spending $100 to acquire a user where I make $500. You can go out and go to one of these platforms and say, I'll actually pay you, pay these people an unlimited, for an unlimited, I'll pay you, $1 billion if you attract the right number of customers, because you're making more per sale than they are. And so these are things, the really good thing about these channels is you don't need any money up front to use them, because you're only paying people when they make a sale. I think it's really important here to, the one thing I'll add is, folks are incentivized to make a sale. You really want to make sure that your brand is being displayed in a manner with extreme integrity. You don't want people to say that your energy drink cures cancer to make sales, because they're still getting paid. So it's really important to monitor the landing pages and the data and the places that your sales are coming from, and then make sure that if things are non-compliant with things you're not happy with, just communicate that first, and then sort of stop honoring those affiliates if you need to. You'll see affiliate ads almost everywhere in every niche, on every display site. Some of them are very obvious, and they're little links in emails and sponsored content on podcasts. some of them are less obvious, and many of those are things that are called native content, which is basically someone will write an article about your business. They'll share that article with a link in it, across the web on various channels. You click the link, they get paid only if you make a sale. So it's another channel that can work really, really well for the right kind of business. Doesn't cost a lot of money up front, but really does work and is pretty effective. The sixth strategy is really, I think, an overlapping one. Is once you actually have users, customers, and fans using some of these channels, people have signed up to your podcast using a content locker or kind of content gate, or through a podcast, or they followed you on Twitter and migrate to your email list. Actually continually regularly using that list, I think, is the most important thing that many people just don't do. I think it's really, really, really important to take what is a real big asset of your business, which is your following, and continue to nurture it in ways that make sense. I think the number one thing I will say that is easy to do, if you think about it, is just build consistency in your email communication. Send out a newsletter every Friday. You don't have enough for stuff for every Friday. Send out a newsletter every month. Focus on 3 or 4 things that are interesting in your industry, not your business, because again, no one cares about your business. They care about themselves. So focus on things that are important to the audience that you have. Throw in a little nugget about some developments you have in your business. Throw in some nuggets about things that are interesting in the sector. But do it regularly and consistently. Don't just send an email out when you launch a new feature and you want people to pay you. Really kind of continue to send content, establish your company and businesses as an expert. Here's a few ideas that we've used in our business, and you'd be surprised. Even in companies like plumbing and HVAC, we built for our business tens of thousands of users on our email list. Many of them buy an air conditioner from us once and don't need us for the next 10 years until it breaks. But by establishing, hey, here's a spring cleaning routine. Have you thought about adding humidifier? And living in Nevada, you need one. Things like that. You'll often get people you'll just be top of mind, right? It's free. It doesn't cost you anything to be top of mind for people. And sometimes they'll need someone. Sometimes they'll make a referral. But just being, and they'll be more likely to open your email if you provide kind of value. So that's something that I think a lot of people neglect the fact that they have people on their email list or customer list and just ignore them and only contact them when they need them. And it's I think doing it the other way, which is just having scheduled by adding value on a weekly or monthly basis, can be extremely helpful. We do, at Matador, we do a weekly email, which is the state of kind of the precious metal industry, news in the space, and that's one of the things that we've done to we haven't launched our product yet, but we have 9 or 10,000 people on our list that are waiting for it. So we just send them content to make them remember we're live, and hopefully when we do launch in the coming weeks. A lot of these people will have felt goodwill from us kind of sharing things with them to actually, kind of sign up and become customers. So that's really it at a high level. I think hopefully this is not obviously a comprehensive list of ways to be bootstrapped, but I think the key learnings here are, find users using channels that are open and free and friendly, and turn those fans and turn that attention into permanent customers and potential customers that you own using your website, using email and things like that. So I'll pause there and certainly want to open up to any give as much time as possible for any questions or comments, whether they're specific or anything I talk about or just marketing in general. Happy to talk about anything.
Thanks, Devin. That was great. We actually do have some questions that have come in.
Perfect.
So I will start from the top. The first one is, can you share a bit more about PR and marketing and when to use one versus the other?
Sure. I think the thing about PR is it is its own marketing channel, and it tends to work pretty well if you have something that is interesting to people. And not all businesses are interesting. At Snowball, we don't use a lot of PR because not a lot of people talk about plumbing and HVAC. Whereas at Matador, which is a gold thing, and people are always talking about gold, we use it a lot more. I'll say that if you're going to focus on building that PR presence, it certainly can be, sort of one channel that you use to focus on. What you really need to do then is continually be, trying to find these angles of how your business can fit into the broader, kind of themes that are interesting in the world. And if you feel like you have a business that's very general and accommodatable into that, then I think it can make a lot of sense. If that's not something that's going to work for you, because your business is so specific to a specific use case and it's not, malleable, then I think, other channels like LinkedIn can make a lot more sense to focus on. But I do think that, it's oftentimes you can sort of try to do both, which is basically you're always creating content. You're always trying to focus on, what's timely and interesting. And sometimes you'll find out that actually overlaps with, with what the media cares about. So it's almost like you almost are always marketing, always creating content, always trying to find a connection with your customers. And sometimes that connection, and, for our example, I don't think we had really thought that PR was going to be a big angle for metaverse, because who the heck talks about metaverse? But then when, all these things happened a year ago, we sort of just jumped on the opportunity, took the content, built a story, and then just got it out there. So I think you can always kind of have that PR angle in the back of your head, but be ready to, pull the trigger when you find yourself in the spotlight for, good or bad reasons.
Devin, to that end about PR, do you advise using a PR firm or doing it yourself?
We've had success with both. I certainly actually would say advise doing it yourself if you have the time and resource. PR agencies and companies can be expensive. I think it's probably hard to find someone that's good that will do it for less than $5,000 or $10,000 a month. Whereas I think for someone that knows a business, it could be someone's part-time job. You could probably be pretty good at PR at 5 or 10, with 5 or 10 hours a week. So if you've got, 5 or 10 hours a week to monitor, places like Help a Reporter Out, just scan publications that you care about, find things that are relevant, and just kind of, issue press releases or poke, a list of journalists every time something really timely comes up. I think it's equally effective. PR can make sense when, outside PR firm can make more sense when you're really, really trying to, gear up for a specific event. You're really trying to get featured in a large publication in order to, kind of build your brand or raise more money or something. But I think a lot of these things often just come better organically.
I think there's a question in the room.
Hi. The question I have is about building brand identity for purposes of recruiting, either designers, product managers, engineers, or extending that to investors and advisors. You provided so much information that's all that's useful. I hope we can get this presentation. Which of these would you go to first for building brand identity for recruiting?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I actually think that right now, irrespective of your question, but very related to your question, LinkedIn is one of the most exciting places to be a marketer and to be a content creator, because what you can do is, as the CEO of a company or a team member of a company, create lots of really good content about your business, your culture, the things you do differently, where you see the world going in your space. And all these things are often, read by people in your niche. And I think it's not that hard to build a 1,000 or 5,000 person following on LinkedIn. A lot easier than some of these other channels. Doing that, commenting, finding other people that are interested in your space, have already built audiences, commenting on their posts, linking them to your posts. Can create a dialogue. And then when you have built a little bit of that goodwill on a platform like LinkedIn, asking people, saying, hey, we're hiring for this, asking, other influencers that have audiences to say, hey, would you mind, sending this out to your network, and can work really, really well. It's a channel that people that like using it use it a lot, and obviously it's really, really tied into where employees hang out, where advisors hang out, as well as potential investors.
Thanks, Devin. Hey, a couple people have stated that the tactics you're outlining are great. And while they might not take a lot of money, they do take a lot of time, which founders have little of. And they wonder if you can recommend the tactics that would have the strongest ROI.
Absolutely. I think it really depends on your business. And if you have a business that's really, driven by consumers and consumer interest and not businesses, I think, the ones that probably make the most sense are partnering with people that already have audiences, because and those can be podcasters or those could be influencers, because those people can be, supporters of your business long term, and as they grow, their your attention can grow, and the value they provide can grow. If you're on the B2B side, I am, sort of probably the biggest fan of, focusing on kind of cold outreach to podcasters, because there's a podcast about every niche on planet Earth that you'd be surprised, and probably many. So, getting on these places are places where, decision makers at businesses spend time. And by establishing yourself as an authority, saying what you do in a unique way, it can be really valuable to finding customers, and also having content that's permanent in your business.
Great, thanks. We have a lot of scientists here at UW, as you can imagine, and one of the questions is about what would you recommend to a scientist with an impactful product who has a startup and is a newbie and is struggling with getting things going and with confidence, and they might feel uncomfortable marketing themselves. Do you have any advice for someone in that situation?
Absolutely. I mean, I think this really goes back to, probably the first thing I said, which is, stick to one channel, one medium. And, if you hate talking, don't be on a podcast. We hate, looking at yourself in the, like, for whatever reason, don't pick YouTube. I think there's a lot of, I think a lot of people that may lack confidence in communicating their ideas probably don't lack confidence in their knowledge base and why the product they offer, or their view on an industry is unique. And I think focusing on, in places like that, focusing on, Twitter, or focusing and just, finding people that are talking about a space that you care about, and just chiming into the conversation, replying to comments. Like it's that, it's really about saying, hey, I have an opinion and I think it's a good one. Let me just share that opinion with people. And through that, I'm going to become sort of more, well-known, build relationships in an organic way through knowledge and, shared interests.
Great. One of our questions was about, can you talk about your thoughts about Google Local?
Yeah, I think it's the best thing since sliced bread for certain types of businesses. It's absolutely phenomenal, the amount of geo-targeting that you can do using a channel like Google Local, because, it's something that's not super well known, but, maybe it is, but, a lot of things that Google will do is basically target your search result based on where your, device is and where someone is logging in. So I think as a business, there's a lot you can do to be creative about saying, hey, I'm going to actually, build a really strong profile, actually get my profile verified, because there's a lot of people that can't, that are spamming Google Local. So if you actually go through this process called, a verified business, which is you get a little green check mark next to your thing, you'll show up more prominently in search results. It's something that takes a lot of time, and some people don't do it, but you do, and you'll 10x your traffic. Secondly, I think, finding unique ways to get a lot of footprints for your business. So if you have a business that is, kind of locally generated, if you're able to, get a bunch of, PO boxes in various cities that make a lot of sense and have a lot of addresses and locations that don't cost a lot of money, but if you're finding that that's something that's interesting to your business, you can definitely do that and if you don't, if you're based in the outskirts of a big city, get a mailbox in, downtown Seattle, or where the population is, or wherever, and use that as kind of the key location, because you'll have a higher radius of people to be able to serve and see what you're doing. but I think Google is very good at creating tools to increase discoverability, even without spending money. So do everything you can to verify your business and improve your profile, which then will also increase conversion rate. And the last thing is, I think Google's review ecosystem is great. If you don't have any reviews, get a few, just because people do want to see, companies with strong credibility.
Right. We have a question here about wondering if you've ever done this, hosting online AMAs, Ask Me Anythings, or Twitter chats, or AMAs on Reddit. Wonder if you've ever employed any of those tactics.
I think they're really fantastic ways to get a bunch of like-minded people in a room together, thinking about and talking about, and also with yourself being seen as an expert. I certainly think that the things that kind of work the best there, especially if you're sort of an upstart business without a giant audience, right? Elon Musk is going to fill a room no matter where. But if you're, just getting started, oftentimes what you can do is, partner with 4 other 5 companies in your industry to do a joint AMA or a joint Twitter Spaces, where everyone tries to bring their own audience to share users' ideas, make it more of a panel, make it collaborative. And I think these kinds of things can work really well in expanding your reach, even if you don't have a big one already. I think AMAs are, we've had trouble, I think, filling the room sometimes on Twitter AMAs, unless it's done, in a way that it's a very timely topic, or you already have established a bunch of credibility. But I think Twitter is one where you can get a lot of like-minded people that have a medium-sized Twitter audience and turn it into something that is equivalent to what a big-sized audience may have.
Okay, great. We have a question about platforms by industry. For example, are there better platforms than others to get out messages or from your startup for tech, for example, or for life sciences? Do they vary by industry, or do you find that they're pretty equivalent across industries?
I think they do vary a bit by industry. Small business products, I think, LinkedIn and Product Hunt are really good platforms for that. On the life sciences side, I think, to me, the best channel that I've seen has still been kind of very industry specific kind of podcasts and Twitter for AMAs. Just kind of like, I think those are better places. Like I haven't personally, found a really good social network that really only caters there, but I think there's large communities that you can sort of tap into pretty quickly using, using Twitter and the podcast ecosystem.
Okay. Anything else in the room, Caroline? Just checking, because I've got a few more here coming in online. So we're wondering about the value of attending conferences as a marketing tool. Is that something that you have done in your world?
I've been to a tremendous number of conferences, and I think they can be very good for, making a couple of really tight, strong connections that you can then use to build your, following and audience and work together. I think they're less good for, handing out a bunch of business cards, because they take up so much time, right? It's sort of like, what's more efficient? Is it spending 3 days in a room, trying to hand your business card out, or making a YouTube video and spending 3 days trying to share it with the right people? So often, I think especially in the post-COVID world, I certainly have found that a hybrid strategy of being able, if you don't know anyone in an industry, I think going to conferences to make those initial connections and friends and followers can make a lot of sense. But once you have a bit of an audience already, I certainly feel that you get more operating leverage through doing things. This is also me sitting in my home office being a bit of an introvert. So, mileage may vary if you love talking to people, but for me, I've definitely found, my mileage goes further when, creating things that are going to last forever and promoting them.
Yeah. Understood. Do you have any marketing books or other resources that you recommend that people read or buy? Or
Absolutely. I've got my own favorite list, which I'm happy to kind of share, separately, which is a long list. But to answer the question, the two, based on some of the questions that have come in, there's a whole series of books by an author named Russell Brunson, who writes, one book he writes is called Expert Secrets. Another one is, kind of lead generation, but he has like 3 books, and it's a series basically about how to present yourself and your company as an expert in industry, how to share, your vision with the world, and how to get, customers and leads using that framework. So I think it's really good because it's not a spend a lot of money with marketing book. It's a lot of, it's a lot of mindset and kind of, which I think can be really helpful for kind of young entrepreneurs. The second one is a book. It's really short, but it's one of the best ones I've read this year or last year. It's called $100 Million Offers, and it's not, what it sounds like. It's by an author named Alex Hormozy, but it's basically about how to, portray your product in a way to attract users to it, such that you convert more potential customers to customers. So a big part of marketing, I think, is actually kind of making the sale, not just, getting a user in front of you. And I think it's a fantastic book on how to present your business offering in a way that's compelling to people.
Cool. Thank you for that. Yeah, we'd love your list. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
Question came in about how do you recommend to either use PR or other marketing alternatives for CBD companies?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's actually more important in the CBD space than many others because certain channels are just not available to you these days, right? And I think that may change, but you can't use Google to run ads. You can't run commercials in the Super Bowl, etc. But what you can do in this space is, I think there's a lot of heavy enthusiasts that hang out in places like Twitter and Reddit, and I think becoming a valued part of a community in a way that's not being seen as kind of a shill, so to speak, where you only talk about your company, but you actually just continue to talk about your products, but also other products, engage with consumers there, find gated content areas that you can to share interesting things to people that are real enthusiasts in the business. Can be a really good way to approach things in an organic way.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. I think we maybe have time for one more before we wrap up. I have one here about crisis communications. Mm-hmm. As a founder, and if you're managing all of the social media and the PR, it's a lot to manage, but do you have any recommendations or resources on how to deal with crisis communications?
It's not something that I have a specific expertise in, but I think just being a human and someone who watches a lot of marketing, I do think that, sort of clear, direct communication, in a very timely manner, can work wonders for, solving problems. I think the things that I've seen, work the least well are, sort of just radio silence followed by, cagey legal talk that doesn't say anything, but instead, sort of a honest, like crises are often human situations. And I would say that, if you're following a lot of these things, which are like, hey, pick a channel, then I would say, and that's where your channel spends time and they know where to find you, use that channel to, be open, speak as plainly as you can, legal issues, in order, but like, I think it's really just getting out there soon in the same way that you usually get out there to your audience is really valuable.
Totally agree. I've seen some of that as well, and being proactive and honest and, not waiting, not being in the reactive stance, you generally fare much better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's pretty much all we have time for. Thank you so much, Devin. Really appreciate all of your thoughts and experience and knowledge. We will be wrapping up, and this is also available. As we said, it's going to be available on the CoMotion website. As a reminder, next Friday at noon, we'll be hearing from Ken Horenstein. He's the founder and general partner at Pack Ventures, and he's going to present, his topic will be how to kill your startup faster and find great business ideas. So that should be fun. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Go ahead and sign up for that if you're interested, and have a great day. Thanks, everybody.